Is Thursday, February the 7th, and this is The Drill. Thank you very much. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States of America today, because I'm the only one that makes the presumption for the status quo. See, the average conservative in this country has been brainwashed by the left into believing that they are conservative when in reality they are reactionary. Decades ago, the Democrats, with the acquiescence of Republicans, set the table, politically speaking, by deliberately redefining political identity. The Democrats decided that one's position on the issues are what define the political parties. Naturally, the Democrats decided what the issues should be. The news departments reinforced this decision, and the Republicans paid the price. The Democrats created an action-reaction political dynamic, with Republicans playing the role of reactionary. In reality, voters are either left or right as a matter of fact, not a matter of opinion. And the most essential political fact of reality is change. You and I are defined by our attitudes about change. Change is indicated when there's an improvement to the status quo. Unless there's something obviously better than what we have now, we stay the course. That's realistic, i.e. conservative. Constant change in the blind search for perfection is idealistic or liberal. Defining voters by the issues turns everything on its head. Progress and moving forward take precedence over common sense. Change not because it's better, but for the sake of change. Act first, think later, trial and error. And that's basically what this program is all about. And that's my little introduction there. I did want to go ahead at this particular point, and I wanted to go ahead and play for you a little clip. Oh, no. It's not a clip, actually. What I'm going to do is read a transcript from the Rush Limbaugh show about Trump's State of the Union symphony. Rush. All right, folks, it was pure genius. I mean, it was instinctive, pure genius last night by President Trump and the State of the Union show. And, of course, I'm going to explain why I think that. All right, so now let's go down here. But I have to tell you that last night, from beginning to end, was a symphony. It had a simple, great theme. What was the central great theme? American greatness, and that we should choose it, that it was the only sensible option. It was a contribution of the slogan, a continuation of the slogan, "Make America Great Again." Although he never uttered those words, he got close a couple of times, but he did not utter the words. It was a simple, I wouldn't even call it a plea, it was a simple acknowledgement that we can and should choose greatness for America. Donald Trump weaved all of his accomplishments, all of his past accomplishments, combined with all of his future goals and his guests into that theme. When the president was acknowledging all the World War II heroes and all the law enforcement heroes and describing what they had done in conquering the Normandy beaches, in repelling the Heights at Pont du Hoc, at beating back the tyranny of the Nazis and saving the world from tyranny, where do you think your average leftist is thinking when these kinds of exploits are recounted? So, right there, fascinating stuff, because, again, the Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, they can't help but be reactionary. They get up in the morning, and the first thing they do is scour the newspapers to find out what it is the liberals did. What is it that Nancy Pelosi said? What did Chuck Schumer say? What is it that AOC said or did? And then they go ahead and react to that, even on something as easy to deal with as President Trump's State of the Union address. Now, Rush went ahead and started by doing the right thing. He went ahead and explained what was giving his impression of the speech overall. He was analyzing it or critiquing it. He said that it was a great speech, basically. I'm paraphrasing. A great speech, and it was symphonic in nature. And he goes on to explain why it was symphonic in nature, how different types of parts of the speech were interwoven into a big theme of basically make America great again. Fabulous stuff. Excellent. This is what we should be hearing from Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity et al. Every single day, 3 hours a day per show, all day, every day. This is what we should be hearing. But he can't help himself. As soon as he gets done with that, he goes right back. He reverts to form and starts in with the, what do you think the left is thinking about this? He goes back to being reactionary. It's wrong. He shouldn't do that. Who cares? Who cares what the left is thinking about it? The left operates as their provocateurs, agent provocateurs, or agent provocateurs. Let's do it that way. They want to provoke people. They want a revolution. They want to agitate for a revolution. Okay, we know that. Once you know that, there's no reason to bother to stop and think about what it is that they're thinking, what it is that they're doing, what it is that they're about. Who cares? Who gives a rat's rump about the left? The left aren't the people that make things that happen in this country. Conservatives are. So, and Rush Limbaugh should be emphasizing that. He should be out promoting conservatives and values. And I notice I didn't say conservative values, because there's no such thing. There's values and there are anti-values. Okay? And values are what's good for everybody. Not just conservatives, not just liberals. So there's no such thing as liberal or conservative values. But that's what Rush Limbaugh should be promoting here, and started to. He started to get right into there, get juicy about it, and have this segment of the show be very uplifting. The beginning segment of the show can be very uplifting for conservatives, to remind people why they're conservatives, why they want to be conservatives, why they should encourage their children to be conservatives, and for that matter, anybody that's just becoming into voting age, why they should be a conservative, being proud to be a conservative, instead of having to spend all your time all day long being depressed, being angry, being frustrated, because all we hear from Rush Limbaugh is what the left is up to. Okay, I know he's going to find this hard to believe, but I don't tune into Rush Limbaugh because I want to hear from Nancy Pelosi. I don't tune in to Sean Hannity because I want to hear from Chuck Schumer. Okay? I tune in to those shows, or Liz Wheeler for that matter, or Glenn Beck or anyone else, because I want to hear from them. Those are the people I want to hear from. I want to hear from a conservative about conservatism. So, when I come back, I'm going to be reading from the Ayn Rand lexicon, and then I'm going to finish up the introduction, anyways, of Ben Shapiro's book, Bullies. Thank you very much. Welcome back. And from the Ayn Rand lexicon, the concept of the day is existence. Existence exists, and the act of grasping that statement implies two corollary axioms: that something exists which one perceives, and that one exists possessing consciousness, consciousness being the faculty of perceiving that which exists. If nothing exists, there can be no consciousness. A consciousness with nothing to be conscious of is a contradiction in terms. A consciousness conscious of nothing but itself is a contradiction in terms. Before it could identify itself as consciousness, it would have to be conscious of something. If that which you claim to perceive does not exist, what you possess is not consciousness. Whatever the degree of your knowledge, these two, existence and consciousness, are axioms you cannot escape. These two are the irreducible primaries implied in any action you undertake, in any part of your knowledge, and its sum from the first ray of light you perceive at the start of your life to the widest erudition you might acquire at its end. Whether you know the shape of a pebble or the structure of a solar system, the axioms remain the same: that it exists and that you know it. To exist is to be something, as distinguished from the nothing of non-existence. It is to be an entity of a specific nature made of specific attributes. Centuries ago, the man who was, no matter what his errors, the greatest of your philosophers, has stated the formula defining the concept of existence and the rule of all knowledge. A is A. A thing is itself. You have never grasped the meaning of his statement. I am here to complete it. Existence is identity. Consciousness is identification. Reality is that which exists. The unreal does not exist. The unreal is merely that negation of existence, which is the content of a human consciousness, which, when it attempts to abandon reason. Existence is a self-sufficient primary. It is not a product of a supernatural dimension or of anything else. There is nothing antecedent to existence, nothing apart from it, and no alternative to it. Existence exists, and only existence exists. Its existence and its nature are irreducible and unalterable. The first and primary axiomatic concepts are existence, identity, and consciousness. An axiomatic concept is the identification of a primary fact of reality which cannot be analyzed, i.e., reduced to other facts or broken into component parts. It is implicit in all facts and in all knowledge. It is the fundamentally given and directly perceived or experienced, which requires no proof or explanation, but on which all proofs and explanations rest. One can study what exists and how consciousness functions, but one cannot analyze or prove existence as such or consciousness as such. These are irreducible primaries. An attempt to prove them is self-contradictory. It is an attempt to prove existence by means of non-existence and consciousness by means of unconsciousness. And that's what I always am saying when I say there's two places where conservatives can go really wrong, and that is when somebody invites you to debate reality or they invite you to debate God. Okay, because when you engage in that debate, you end up contradicting yourself by acknowledging the opposite, as Ayn Rand has described here. Any attempt to prove them is self-contradictory. It's an attempt to prove existence by means of non-existence and consciousness by means of unconsciousness, or proving God by means of a lack of God, of no God. Doesn't work. Existence and identity are not attributes of existence. They are the existence. The units of the concepts existence and identity are every entity, attribute, action, event, or phenomenon, including consciousness, that exists or has ever existed or will ever exist. And that was the concept of the day from the Ayn Rand lexicon, and it was existence. And when I come back, I'm going to be reading from and commenting on the remainder of the introduction of the book by Ben Shapiro called Bullies. And thank you very much. Let's see. I want to see where I'm at here. America is a nation built on the nation. We should be bullied by government. That's what freedom means. Let's see. Okay, let's start at this particular point. The left likes to bully, and it's good at it. The predictable outcome has been the incredible rise of the American left in a country that leans to the right. Domestically, the left has been able to bully Americans into accepting abortion on demand as somehow mandated by emanations, penumbras, and Casper the Friendly Ghost in the Constitution. The left has forced Americans into accepting the radical redefinition of economic freedom to encompass government control over how you flush your toilet, unwed motherhood is equal in moral quality and outcome to traditional family structure, the complete removal of religion from public life, and its replacement with vulgarity, rejection of a colorblind society in favor of reverse racism, the creation of a massive social safety net that provides safety for the lazy and a net for the productive. The list goes on and on. America was a nation built on the notion that nobody should be bullied by the government. That's what freedom means. Now, the left has convinced Americans that they're bullies if they oppose increasing encroachment of government. we're bullies if we want to control our own fate. We're victims if we don't get to control how other people live their lives. When it comes to foreign policy, the left has completely reversed notions of American goodness. America has destroyed more bullies than every other nation in the history of mankind combined. We started as a rebel nation against the bully and tyrant King George III. We continued to fight the good fight against slavery. We took down the Kaiser and Hitler. We brought down the Soviet Union and Saddam Hussein and the Taliban. We prevented the domination of South Korea. Yes, and if the left had allowed for it, would have prevented the domination of Vietnam by bullies. And yet the left has convinced the world and many Americans that America is the world's biggest bully. Patriotism, they say, is bullying. Dissent, they say, is patriotism. When America was struck on September 11, 2001, leftists like Professor Ward Churchill described the victims as the technocratic core at the very heart of America's global financial empire. Little Eichmanns, unquote. We were the bad guys. We deserved it because we are global bullies, and bullies deserve chickens coming home to roost, in the words of Jeremiah Wright. Like any good bullies, these ones deserve an enormous punch in the face. But you're considered a bully if you suggest that hating America might be mildly unpatriotic, and you're considered a flag waver if you're a flag burner. This is the world that the left has bequeathed to us. It's filled with lies. It says that the truth is thuggish, and obfuscation of truth a required element of civility. It says that moral clarity is nasty and uncouth, and moral relativism morally preferable. It reverses bullies and victims, emboldening the world's true bullies in the process. That promise the founders made to us, what Andrew called the sexiest selling point in human history, has been turned into the mark of Cain by the left. Quote, I hate these people, unquote, Andrew said. He exposed them and he fought them. Quote, I see exactly what is going on here, unquote, Andrew said to me about 2 years before he died. Quote, it is my unfortunate burden to take my understanding of what these people are, what their tactics are, and to start trying to form an army to destroy them, unquote. Now we must pick up Andrew's torch, we must expose the bullies, and we must stand up to them. The only thing that I would add to this is that he's right in general about bullies. The problem is that, again, he collectivizes the problem. And if you collective problems beget collective solutions. It means then that we have to act like the left, we have to get organized, and then we have to start doing things like boycotting or letter writing campaigns. What about the individual? Who is standing up for me in this equation? And how does all this bullying affect me directly? Well, it affects me directly because it is the average lefty in this country that is out trying to create a movement. They all think that they are leaders and change agents, and so they try to bully and intimidate their neighbors, their friends, their relatives, their co-workers. Okay, so you're going to run into these bullies on a one-on-one basis each and every day. And so what you have to learn is how to deal with each individual lefty when you run into them. You have to be able to recognize the signs of bullying, know when it is that you're being bullied, how you're being bullied, and what to say or how to say it, and how to say it in response, depending on, of course, what situation you find yourself in. So again, that's probably the third biggest problem of the of conservatives, particularly conservative pundits, is that they have a tendency to acknowledge or create or play into collective problems. Like I've said about the left wants to go on about the poor. That's a collection of people, not a poor person, that poor person, but the poor, the homeless. And if you create a collective problem, there is no individual solution to a collective problem. You must come up with a collective solution. And usually that involves getting government, writing laws to restrict some people from doing certain things in favor of other people. And somebody was talking about, and it may have been right here in this particular segment, but about the idea that the laws that are written were written laws that are getting written are usually about forcing people to do things, and that's why the laws have a tendency to be bullying, or they have a tendency to be domineering, and that get written, and that's the problem with big government. Well, not really. The issue is with the people that call themselves progressive. They're not. They're Croleyists. But Herbert Crowley was the guy way back in the 1920s, wrote a book called The Promise of American Life, and in it, he was saying that the government should not be a neutral third party. This government, our United States of America, and all the state governments and local governments are based on the idea that government is not to be promoting anything, that government is to be a neutral third party. It's there to settle disputes. That if there's a dispute about your rights, if there's a dispute about property, if there's a dispute about your property lines, whatever the case happens, contracts, then you go to the government acts as a neutral third party, and in acting like a neutral third party, it creates the confidence that people can live together in a civilized society. Progressivism, so-called, I call it Crowleyism, says the opposite. It says, no, the government should not be a neutral third party. The government should be an advocate. The government should take positions, which is immoral. You can't have a situation where the government has to choose whether it's going to support the poor or it's going to support the rich, whether it's going to come down on one of those two sides. You can't have that, okay? Because everybody votes. Everybody pays taxes. So no matter which side the government comes down on, the government is then creating second-class citizens. And having a second-class citizen because you're rich is just as bad as creating a second-class citizen because you're black. So, well, that brings me to the conclusion of another episode of The Drill. And until next time, thank you very much for joining me, and have a great day.